Um, Another reason I think is because it really allows you to establish yourself professionally, right? So what could be kind of the big difference between somebody who is just doing a recreational job and somebody's doing a commercial job is being able to show that I have accountability as a professional business owner. And from SkyWatch perspective, we want pilots to fly with peace of mind, right? You have so many things to do when you're out on a drone job to satisfy the client, collect the data, take the images that you need. And really, we don't want insurance to be an added stressor. We want that to be something that is not something that you have to worry about, and you can just activate an insurance policy quickly and easily online and get that peace of mind that you're looking for. And at the end of the day, this is what is going to promote the industry, right? If we have safe and accountable pilots flying commercially, flying insured, it's going to establish the drone industry in a more professional manner. So
You know,
go ahead, sorry.
no, finish. I was going to jump in, but no, finish what your thought. I
No, I
apologize.
was going to say there's a lot going on there, but I think they all kind of go together, because at the end of the day, we need to shed a professional light on the drone industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you started with this idea, of course, that safety is the first priority, and having insurance is a part of that. I was talking to you over the weekend, Yuval, and although it was published apparently on February 1st, it just started making its rounds. The FAA has pushed out an advisory circular for Part 107 drone operators and pilots, advisory circular 107 2A. And it's so chock full of information. I mean, it's over 104 pages long. But one thing I wanted to highlight, because we're going to talk a little bit about the data that you collect and how you kind of, your algorithms, or how you determine, what, you know, how much insurance is worth, or how you have to charge. It's all based on data. And until now, the FAA did not have a very specific requirement for drone mishap reporting, unlike the Air Force. I mean, when I was with the Air Force at Air Combat Command, we did very public aircraft accident investigations. We published those online. There was a very specific process, but this advisory circular actually now, for the first time, requires the submission of a report for a mishap under two conditions. Number one, at least serious injury to any person or any loss of consciousness. And they define a serious injury as one that qualifies as a level 3 or higher on the abbreviated injury scale, or AIS, of the Association of Advancement of Automotive Medicine.
Hmm.
The funny thing about that is I went to that website, it's copyrighted, and that scale is protected. I couldn't access it, so that was a little concerning. So more to follow there. I'm going to definitely follow up on that. So kind of a big deal, right? So if you have an accident causing that kind of injury, and then the second one is if there's damage to any property other than to your own drone, if the cost is greater than $500 to repair or replace that property, whichever is lower. So that report has to be filed within 10 days. It has to go to the FAA. They give the phone numbers for the regional offices. There's an online way, etc.
Mhm.
But up until now, that data set, and frankly, it's not clear to me that that information will be transparent to the public once the FAA collects it. Like that's just still a question mark for me. But up until now, we haven't had that data set for you at SkyWatch to kind of make your informed decision. So what have you been basing your coverages on? Like, what kind of data and information have you been using?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the way that we work, we offer discounts that are for safety measures, right? So we basically, the way that we consider data is if we're able to give discounts onto our policies. So um, what we do is we consider a bunch of different like telematic data. So anything that's found in flight logs. So basically, all of the data that we collect at SkyWatch from drone pilots, or you know, um, is coming specifically from drone log flights. So ones that are collected, like in your whatever app you're using. So we're able to take those logs from any third-party app or DJI drones or anything like that. Of course, we don't do anything with these logs outside. So once we collect the data, we're not sharing this with any third parties or anything like that. We're just using it for a discount model. Um, so it is a little bit, it doesn't go so much into the insurance so much as it goes into, are we able to offer a better deal for somebody who's flying safe? And we're able to do that. We're able to look at battery life level. When are people, landing their drone? When are they taking off? Is there enough battery in there? Are they, flying distance from, what is the distance that they're operating from? Things like that we're able to analyze that data in a way to determine flying behaviors. And then somebody who's, repeatedly flying with good flying behaviors, we're able to offer a discount anywhere of 10 to 30% off. With that being said, we also analyze the logs in the event of accidents, right? So if you were to have an accident, one of the first things that we ask for is for you to submit your flight log, because we want to see what happened. If there's any, information from the flight log where we can see what went wrong, what caused it, and then we're able to in turn, take that information and look and better our algorithm for future, see things that lead to accidents, and where, we might want to offer recommendations to pilots moving forward. Another reason that we find really important to collect this flight log is because we want to make sure that a flight actually did take place, right? So if somebody, loses their drone, there's a flyaway event, we want to see that the flight actually did take place. So that's also something that's really important for us. And I think that with this new, mishap regulation that we're going to have to submit things to the FAA about accidents, it's going to make it a lot more obvious to operators what they need to do in the event of an accident. Because today you have an accident, and the first thing is sometimes panic, don't know what to do, flee the scene, don't talk to anyone, and then you leave and you have no information about the accident that just happened, right? Or what happened to your drone. And I think that now, if there is some sort of expectation that, this is submitted, then there'll be some sort of like a reminder, or people will come prepared, before the accident even happens, to know what they need to do in the event of an accident.
Yeah, that's all great. I wanted to backtrack for a second and then also dovetail on something you just said. So the first thing was the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB. They always had a requirement to report I will say, very serious or significant drone accident, things involving death and et cetera. And that's in a federal regulation. So it's not like there was no reporting requirement. The FAA didn't have this very specific one. So that is what's new.
Mm-hmm.
But to dovetail then, Yuval, on what you just said, you mentioned, you're collecting this information on mishaps. Just kind of skipping ahead to something you and I had talked about before we came live. So what are like the top 3 mishaps that you've seen, or what are the 3 like lessons learned that you can tell? Because I think most people, when they go out there, they think I think it's human nature to think you're bulletproof, right? That nothing's going to happen to me. What have you seen in the area of mishaps that people can learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to take this from insurance perspective. I think one of the mishaps, not so much with piloting commands or something about a drone pilot, is not understanding what kind of coverage you have, and not having some sort of plan. That is going to lead to a bigger problem, because then what happens is you're filing your reports the wrong places. You're claiming things in the wrong area. You might be contacting the wrong people, and that's going to delay you getting, your drone repaired or getting your business back up. So I think that the first and foremost, if we're talking about insurance, is kind of understanding what you have in terms of coverage, that if something goes wrong, you know where to direct that mishap to, right? Because we can help at the time, of the accident. We can help after, but if it's not reported, or there's not clarification when the accident or the mishap actually takes place, then that's going to cause such a fiasco, and then claims get delayed, and no one wants that. So I think the real the original mishap is not understanding what coverage you have. With that being said, when it comes to actual piloting, we have a dedicated claims team that really looks into flight logs. So when somebody files a claim or files an accident, they'll sit and really look through the flight logs and understand what went wrong. And one of the biggest points that I know that our team has really noticed is that when pilots pre-plan their flight, okay, when they have some sort of mission plan before they take off, those flights are always significantly safer and significantly less likely to crash or have an accident than those who didn't have some sort of plan beforehand. Um, and you can really see this, up in the flight log itself. So I think the really most important thing to do is that when you're going for a commercial operation, you make some sort of flight plan before, cross off all those, cross your T's, dot your I's, make sure you have a checklist in place so that you're hitting all of the points that want to make, so that you're not just kind of going off into the chute unprepared. I think that's really the biggest insight that I have, from seeing the accidents after the fact, not being there, on the day of the accident, but seeing it after.
Well, this advisory circular talks a lot about aeronautical decision making and crew resource management and pre-flight inspections, and there's a lot of best practices contained in the appendices. So, for those out there viewing and that will watch this later, if you haven't looked at this advisory circular, I highly recommend you do so because it definitely will help safety in your practices, as you've all mentioned. So, and folks out there, again, ask your questions to Yuval. This is your opportunity. Chat with each other, chat with us. We love to get the feedback. So Yuval,
Mhm.
starting kind of from the beginning, then you mentioned not knowing your coverages. How do you get those coverages? What coverages are available actually?
Right, absolutely. So when it comes to aviation liability, right, you want to make sure that you have bodily injury and property damage, which is what we also discussed just now. That's when you need to report, over a certain limit. So that's really the foundation of what's covered in aviation policies. And with SkyWatch, the policy is built liability for the pilot, right? So if I have 5 different drones and I'm operating a different drone every single day, I myself, as the pilot, am insured for liability no matter which drone I'm using. And that's kind of the beauty and the flexibility of our insurance, is that it's really catered to you. And we don't need to specify which drone is being used unless you want that physical damage coverage, right? So unless you are worried that you're just going to have physical damage to the drone and you want that repaired, then you of course want to specify which drone is being used. Um, in addition to the bodily injury and property damage coverage, there's also personal injury. Of course, when you're recording and you might be flying over something, you're gonna want to make sure that you also have coverage for invasion of privacy, libel, slander, things like that. So those are really the three main liabilities that are needed when it comes to aviation insurance. And what we see is also requested from people, right? So people will come to us with requirements, what they need, and those are always the three main points that you want to make sure that you have. Um, with that being said, also it's important to remember that this coverage is third party, right? So it's not going to protect, me and my house if I cause myself damage. It's going to protect others or people that I damage, which is again goes back to the idea of promoting, the drone industry and holding accountability, having an accountable community of pilots, because this liability really does say, we're taking the job, we're taking the responsibility of what happens if something happens. So it's third party bodily injury, property damage, and personal injury. Um, and then kind of the thing about insurances that I think is so interesting is that it really can be determined by two factors, right? So you have the pilots who are coming and saying, I'm establishing a business and I need to get insurance. I need to activate a policy. And then you have pilots who are saying, I have these insurance requirements of me. I need to match my policy, get a policy that matches this. Um, so in order to meet both of these, our policies are super flexible. So you can always have the ability to just activate a policy, that you have on a monthly basis. And then as the requirements come in, you can kind of modify that policy to meet the needs of your current client, of an upcoming client, things like that. And these expectations do change. So in addition to those three liabilities that we just discussed, people might need general liability, They might need medical expenses covered. They might need indoor coverage, especially now we see a lot more flights taking place indoors in warehouses and houses. You might want your policy to cover that as well. So, I can go on and on about what's included in the coverage right now if anyone has any specific questions. But what I really want to like take people to take away from this is that always ask, always find out what's in your policy. The information is A, available online, and B, that's what we're here for, right? So we're always willing to consult and willing to talk to pilots so that we can make sure that that coverage is fully understood and that you can go out onto the job knowing what's in your policy without any confusion.
Well, that's a great segue into then how do people plug in? What is the process then through SkyWatch to get that insurance and to have these conversations you're mentioning?
Yeah, absolutely. So we basically at SkyWatch, we have developed our product online so that it's completely digitalized, right? So you can go online and book a policy through your phone or through our web platform. It's a very easy process. It can take up to 5 minutes really to activate from start to finish. If you know all of the details of what you want included, right? So you have a full customizable online website. You can do it that way. We also have developed our support line and our support services in a way where you can pick up the phone and do it with a broker over the phone. You can schedule a consultation so that we can book it together. Really, the possibilities are endless when it comes to communicating and booking a policy with us. It's just whatever is more comfortable for you, right? There's people who like to do this online without phone assistance the day before they need it. There are people who like to do it a month before with guidance. So really, whatever works best with your work style or however you want to go about it, you can do it online, on your own. Call us, email us, any way that works.
That's great. It sounds super easy. Let me flip it around from something we talked about earlier. We talked about the almost like the top three things that got people in trouble. Let's kind of turn that on its head. And can you give everybody a practical tip on how to stay out of trouble?
Yes. So I think honestly, I don't know if this is, no one wants to hear this, that accidents happen, right? Everyone thinks that, it's not going to happen to them. But I think the best tip to give is to be prepared and say, it could happen to me. And it's better to think that, okay, if it does happen to me, this is what I'm going to do. And these are the steps that I'm going to take. And this is how I'm going to get myself, out of this situation as fast as possible. Because, we've worked with pilots who have years and years of experience and are super professional and seriously take all the measures and have all the best safety equipment. And unfortunately, it's not a reflection of their piloting skills or them at all. It's a combination of natural errors, environmental, situational. It's just not just piloting error, right? Um, and so having some sort of plan beforehand rather than finding yourself in a situation where, how did this happen to me, is going to make everything so much easier in the sense of getting back to work, right? So, I've seen people get delayed over having to get their drone, repaired or something just because they, by the time they were able to figure out what they needed to do or how to get it repaired took so long, or, didn't have an updated copy of their drone registration, right? So needing to re-update your drone registration and get a new certificate and things like that. And if you're prepared beforehand, that you have a copy of that on file. You have an updated sticker. You have a copy of your license and everything. All those things need to be accounted for before going out to operate. And so having some sort of plan and having all your ducks in a row before you go out and being prepared that, maybe something could happen, is going to help, avoid further mishaps.
Well, and as you said, accidents happen. So when they do, how easy is it to file a claim? What's that process?
So filing a claim is also done online, right? Because we need to really gather a lot of information. We want to make sure that we have everything that we need before the claim actually goes into the submission process. So we have an online portal. You're just going to log into your account and you're going to specify, your coverage, select, the because you might have multiple policies, so you want to make sure that you have the one that's current. And then we basically ask for you to gather your flight log, right? So we talked about this earlier. We want to make sure that a flight took place. We want to see what happened. Um, that's in the event that there's a drone accident, right? If the drone is stolen or anything like that, obviously there's not going to be a flight log for that. If the drone is stolen or anything like that, you also want to make sure that you gather things like proof of purchase. So if you bought the drone online, have some sort of receipt. If you just find some sort of way to prove that the drone was purchased. We also want to see a drone registration number. We want to see a Part 107 certificate if you're flying commercially. Um, and the more details, the better. So if you're on scene and you take pictures, or there's witnesses on file with who are there and saw it happening, it's always best to give their details too. Because once all of this is combined, so once we have the drone, the flight log, and the certificates and the registration, everything like that, that's what we're ultimately able to submit over to the claims adjusters and get everything processed without having that back and forth of we're still waiting on this document, we're still waiting on this. And again, all of this is done online, so you can log right in and submit all of it there. There's not multiple steps to the process. It's a one-stop online process. Again, our team is here to help. So if you're not able to do it digitally and somebody needs to walk you through it over the phone, we can also do that. But really, we've made it online because we know people sometimes want to file the claim as soon as it happens, right? So if you're out on scene and you want to get this process started and you have all the paperwork, all your certificates and registration, you can go ahead and open your phone and do it online immediately.
So, assuming the person gets everything that you need in a timely manner, do you have a metric? Like, how quickly do you try to process those claims and get people made whole from that particular accident?
Yeah, so our claims team really works around the clock. When a claim does come in, and an initial response is always given within a few hours. There's never like a long wait to get that first response, because we want to see that all information was presented when the claim was submitted, and if anything is missing, we want to make that known quickly, right? So as soon as the claim comes in, it's very quick response. I would say like within the first 2 to 3 hours, somebody responds, saying we have all the things we need. Great, it's been submitted, or we're ready to submit. We just need one last detail from you. And then from there, it's really situational. So, if the drone is a total loss, or if it just needs a small repair, or if it was, whatever the situation is, has its own process. Um, and it's kind of a two-way street, right? So if there's missing information, the faster, we've seen claims turn around and paid out within 5 to 6 business days. So really, it can be a simple process if all of the paperwork and everything is submitted easy. With that being said, it can take up to 2 weeks if there's a delay, or if there's, if people have a harder time finding a place to repair it and they need to send it in. So really, it's a little bit situational to what happens in the accident, um,
Yeah,
beyond
that
the submission.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, just facts matter. Every case will be dependent on the facts and what you get. But looks like we're running short on time as more people are dialing in, of course. So my question to you is, we got maybe 30 seconds to kind of sum up. What would be your 30-second elevator speech to the folks that are out there that you want to leave them with as we close down and before we sign off?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to say that I really love working and learning with drone pilots, because I myself am not a drone pilot, but I think the only way that we can really perfect our services to meet the drone pilots' needs is by working directly with you guys. So I am always available for like a quick call. I want to know what pilots are working on. I want to know the new equipment being used. I want to know the new jobs out there, so that we can in turn develop our service and insurance model in a way that perfectly fits your needs. So, I'm always available to build a relationship, not just to, sell insurance, but to learn. So please feel free to contact me, email me, set up a call, tell me about yourself, what it is that you're doing in the drone industry, and what you would like to see, how you would like to see insurance change, so that we can learn how we can help.
That's a great point. Every case is different. I was just doing some research over the weekend, and there was a 2020 roll up, and it said there were at least 128 different use cases in the drone industry, and that obviously continues to grow. So having those conversations, I think, is key. And this was one of them. So thank you so much, Yuval, for joining us during this conversation. It was great to learn about you, about SkyWatch, about the amazing things that you guys are doing to, as you said, really help elevate the industry, assist with public perception, help with safety in the national airspace and in the airspace globally, really, because you are a global company. So thanks again. And looks like we're going to have to sign off here. So I wanted to thank everybody that was out there. Please spread the word. Next week, we are going to hear from, no kidding, U.S. drone soccer. It is a thing. What a kick will that be? Well, no kick. They actually fly them. They don't kick them. But it should be a lot of fun. So join me and Kyle Sanders next week, and you'll learn about this really interesting STEM education initiative. Again, check out my website, P3 Tech Consulting. Check out my Patreon page. And we hope to hear and see from you soon. Have a great week, and see you next Monday. Out here.